All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to be taking a look at ways that we can now use these linear equations to help us when we don't have our points that are lining up in a nice straight line. So these are called scatter plots. And we did them in 7th grade a little bit, where you're taking some data and it doesn't make, like I said, it doesn't make a nice straight line. So we have then what we look for are these things called correlations. And correlations is kind of how is the data looking? So for the first one, right, it looks like my data is going up, it's increasing. That is called a positive correlation. Because as x is increasing, so is y. So that's a positive relationship, right? We know that, positive slope. In the second one, it looks like as we're going down, right, it looks like the data is kind of going down. So that's a negative correlation. Again, thinking about slope. Sometimes the points are so scattered all over the place that they don't really make a pattern, which means that there is no correlation, none. All right, now, so a trend line is a line on a scatter plot that is drawn near the data points that shows a correlation. And you can kind of see that example over there. I had all those points, and we drew a line in that's supposed to try to estimate what's happening with those. Well, we can use our calculators to help us come up with an equation for that line, so that then we can use that equation to help us predict what other values you might have. And when we do that prediction, there's two types. The first type is called, which I have a very hard time saying, interpolation, because it's between two known data points. So inter, inside, in between. The other one is called extrapolation, which is when it's outside of the range. So trying to predict almost maybe future things, or what if it's outside of my data points. All right, well, let's take a look at this. So here's some examples. So we have how many minutes we were practicing and how many free throws were made as a percent. That's what we're looking at here. So first of all, I want to know, does this kind of look like it's a positive or a negative? They're going up, so that's going to be a positive. Right? Our graph is increasing. Actually wants us to draw a trend line, so I'm going to try and draw a much better one. And the idea when you're putting in the trend line, first of all, you should be using a straight edge, and you want to have it come as close to as many of the data points as you can. So yours might end up looking a little bit different than mine, and that's okay. All right, but we're going to try to have it, I'm going to make mine so that it comes about like that. And again, yours might not hit every single one, and that's okay. Now what we're going to do is now we're going to take these data points and we're going to try to create an equation using our calculator. But before we do that, I'm going to take and list, and I'm going to actually have you, I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to have you pause it, and then you'll be able to see. I'm going to take each of these points and I'm going to make a table of values. So I'm going to pause, and then when I come back, or you'll be able to just see it happen here. All right, so here's our table of values. And again, you might want to pause so that you can actually write all this down. That might be helpful. But all I did was I took in, some of them I had to estimate, right? So I had the point here, I had 10, and I read up, and it's about 30. That's this point right here. So I just tried to estimate those. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put these into our calculators, right? So calculators should be ready. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit the stat button, and then you're going to hit edit, which is your first choice. And what that does is it brings up these columns that are going to be your lists. And what we're going to do is we're going to put all of our x values into L1. And you literally just hit the number and you hit enter, and then it'll move you down. And then we're going to put the values into L2. So again, I would pause it while you do that so that you can make sure you get it all entered. Okay, so now that you have those entered, now we can use our calculators to come up with the actual equation. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit stat, but this time you're going to go over to where it says calculate, and then you're going to look for number 4, which says LinReg. Ooh, that should be an R. Which stands for linear regression, which means that now it's going to calculate for you. You might have to hit enter a few times, but then it's going to show you, and I know I'm writing all over the place, but it's going to show you this, y equals ax plus b, which is a lot like our y equals mx plus b, and then it's going to give you the values for a and b. It asks us to round to the nearest hundredth. So the equation that we actually get is 0.54x plus 33.78. And there is your equation of the line. And you can do this even if you have points on a graph, right? We were looking at ones in class where you had to come up with the equation. If you have points, at least 2 points on a graph, your calculator will be able to come up with a table with an equation for you. So now we can do some of those other ones using this. Now we're going to use that equation. So use your equation to calculate the percent of, I can never say this, free throws made if the player practiced for 45 minutes per day. So this is going to now be x. So I'm going to do y equals 0.54 times 45 plus 33.78. And that you can as well just put right into your calculators. So 0.54 times 45 plus 33.78 gives me 58.08. I'm going to round that to about 58%. Right, so if they practice for 45 minutes, they should make about 58% of their shots. This is interpolation because it's in between. We were looking for 45 minutes, which is somewhere in between the graph here. The next one, now they want us to use extrapolation, which means we're going to be looking for future numbers, and for 110 minutes. So same equation, but now I'm going to put in 110 for x. And when I do that, plus 33.78 gives me about 93%. So if this person practiced for 110 minutes, they would make about 93% of the shots.
I'd be practicing for 110 minutes.
All right, so let's take a look at another example here. All right, so this one, now they've given us a graph, and they're talking about Buffalo Bills attendance, years since 2000. And as you can see, the attendance has declined, right? It's a negative. But I'm going to use the points. This time they give me the 2 points to use. And I want to be able to write them, so I'm going to put these in my calculator. All right, so again, we're going to go to Stat and Edit. You have to clear out the 2 lists that you already have. You have to be able to do that. And then I'm going to put in, right, I'm going to make my little list. So L1 are always your X values. L2 is always your Y values. So I'm going to have 3 and 6. And I'm going to have 73,000 and 67650,000. Okay, so there are, right there those are. Then I'm going to do, right, I'm going to do Stat. I'm going to go over to Calculate, and it's number 4. And when you do that, again, if you need to stop and pause the video so that you can catch up with this, then that's fine. But when you do that, you're going to get negative 1783.33x plus 78350.
Mine won't, here.
And if you go to the very top of your list, for those of you that are having some trouble and you hit clear, it'll clear the entire list out for you. Now, predict the average attendance at a game in 2012. Well, this is years since 2000, which means my X is actually going to be 12 years, because it'll be 12 years since the year 2000. So when I put that in, I'm going to have negative 1783.33 times 12 plus 78350, which is going to give me 56,950 people. It came out to be 0.04, but you can't have 0.04 of a person. Can you use the equation to make a decision about the average attendance in any given year in the future? No. Because it's not just based on how many years it is, it's based on how well the Bills happen to be playing. So how they are playing, sometimes even who they're playing, because if it's our rivals like the Patriots, I'm sure that game gets sold out. So how they are playing affects attendance. All right, I want you guys on your own to try this. So what we have here is we're talking about ice cream sales depending on the temperature. We have graph form and we have table form. So in the table, this is going to be your list 1, this is going to be your list 2. All right, so I'm going to have you pause the video and then I'll put the answers up and then we'll talk about it in class too. But I want you to try it on your own. Any questions? Bring it to class and have a good night.